I am back again to beat this dead horse. I have been thinking about my essay, The Lost Art of Getting Ready, in like a very weird way for the past like 2 months. Like I was going through burnout, so part of me feels like when I go into burnout, I start to kind of like hate and resent my work a little bit. But I decided to reread it during this week because I was like, was it as bad as I'm remembering? That's not promising, but I was literally saying to myself, was it as bad as I remembered it being from July? Because I wrote it in at the end of May. Throughout June, I was like, oh my gosh, I really like this. And like, it was more so solid advice for myself and like things to remember as I go forward. But then at the end of June into July, when I started like feeling burnt out and not really liking the work that I was making, I also started to hate that essay. So I am back again this August, kind of just to kind of show myself how right I was in that essay, because obviously when I was burnt out, I was not really doing much for myself. And in my essay, I very clearly stated to myself, you need to spend time taking care of yourself and getting ready before you can do things. That's why nothing's working. So when I finally took that advice in August, I was like, oh, I might have been right. So I just kind of wanted to recap all of it because I feel like I'm finally on the other end of it, although knowing the way, I don't even know who to blame. I gotta blame myself at this point. Knowing the way my mind treats me, this is just the beginning. But maybe the middle of the beginning instead of like the beginning. I don't know. I'm trying to remain hopeful. But yeah, not gonna say that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just like taking more time to integrate things. I always say that I don't feel brand new, and then something happens to me that makes me feel like I'm completely out of my depth. And I don't want to continue to think of myself as like new or naive to things and stuff like that, because in my case, for my particular type of stress, it is not helpful to say to myself, you don't know what you're doing. So what I would say, this essay is like trying to teach me, past me trying to teach future me. Okay, she saw the writing on the wall that I don't. Not going to understand anything outside of yourself if you don't understand yourself first, right? And that was kind of the messaging that I was trying to grasp at when I first wrote the essay. Because the essay is wrote, I'm not editing it. I think I said I was, but I don't really want to. I don't like to go back and edit my things. I'd rather just make something else, which I did, but I'll mention that. When I first wrote the essay, I was kind of in a similar state to the way I am now, where I was kind of just sucked into a lot of different things online and in person, having to do with like, in that particular case in May, having to do with like beauty rituals, hygiene, looks maxing, because I think there was something going on. I got sucked into that because I was just like, let me just go down this rabbit hole. I went down the rabbit hole. I regretted it. TikTok is really the source of a lot of my, like, what am I trying to say? Those thoughts that make you feel like a cat scratching the wall, like you can't get out. Or like that one picture of that bird where it's like the bars are in front of him and there's all empty space, but he can only see right in front of him. That's how TikTok makes me feel a lot of the time. And that's how it was making me feel at that point when I was watching all those get ready with me routines. And I was like, I could never do this for myself. But you could. You could do it your own way, but you definitely can. And so throughout that essay, I was like, I'm going to try and do these things. And now I'm on the other end of trying to do those things. So before I get into that, I am going to let the essay play, but there are chapters in the video. So if you don't necessarily want to listen to the full thing, you can skip to the end when I talk about like the aftermath, but I'm just going to let that play in its entirety on here before I get into it.
The Lost Art of Getting Ready. Thread. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Time is money. Song. Runaway by Aurora. I've spent the past few weeks, days, learning how to get ready, which is a little embarrassing to think about considering I feel like my whole life has always revolved around being ready. Getting dressed for school in the morning, for work, for events, prepping for an interview, or getting ready for the function, a birthday, meeting family, etc. I had lived these periods leading up to the main event in anticipation of being seen and scrutinized. I didn't understand being late because you were still getting ready. I was raised to always be on. Stay ready, stay hungry, beat others, which is profoundly inconvenient if you also plan on living a fulfilling life. The hyper-performance that has now incorporated itself into many people's lives as the only means to keep your head above water has further pushed this notion. I can respect the hustle, even as I dismantle the mindset. For some, it's the only way they want to live. For most, this lifestyle degrades that which is most fundamental, the understanding of yourself in relation to the life that you've been living and the lives being lived around you, your place in the collective and as an individual. To understand what it was I have been missing for so long, I had to define my new experiences. I've gotten myself put together, done up, prepped for many an occasion, but seldom was I ready. For a time, I thought of it as vanity. I thought it was reasonable to be asked out tired while outperforming others and not have any of it mean anything to me. As long as no one could tell I was slipping, that meant I won and I was good. But that's such a loser take because I wasn't benefiting. And getting ready can be split into more than a few understandings. What I've observed on my very young journey are a sense of preparedness, grounding, and momentum. All are necessary to feel true sense of peace in life. To delve into the definition, I turn to the real source of my fascination. That is the seemingly endless content stream surrounding beautiful women's get ready with me routines, also called baddie maintenance, looks maxing, and day in the life videos. The pre-established routines that mass amounts of people consumed and incorporated into their lives, not in what I suspected to be an interest to be these women or live exactly like them, but to show up as more of themselves through mimicking practices and procedures they believed would bring them further into contact with themselves, in a manner many of us don't have the time or capacity to do in our own lives. In my own routines, I place an emphasis on getting ready in a quick and efficient manner. The feeling of running out of time bleeds into self-care as there's always another maintenance task that needs to be attended, leaving so little time to turn inward while getting ready. The external changes we make allow us to place a bandage on those parts which really need tending. And the videos allow us to imagine ourselves in a scenario where we're tended to. What it truly showed me is people, women, crave becoming their own pieces of art, carefully manicured or thrown together a whole picture of who they are in that moment and how they plan to move into the next. Like a backlog of work, there is a heavier burden placed on those who don't regularly convene with themselves. Preparedness as a part of life is difficult to fully capture. To be prepared, you have to learn enough about yourself, to know enough about yourself, to do enough for yourself, constantly. And this is concurrent with learning, knowing, and doing enough socially, academically, romantically, and career-wise. On top of that, not only should we feel prepared for the days we face in the short term, but also be ready to build towards long-term goals. If, like me, there was a mismatch in the hierarchy of preparedness in your life, it can leave a feeling of stuntedness. I say this with the authority of someone who has only been prepared for life through the lens of others, which bred a lack of self-allegiance I'm still embarrassed about. Likely the most important part of getting ready is grounding yourself in the present and letting the worries of the world fade away. There is a ritualistic nature to convening with yourself. Not everyone needs to get up in the morning and say affirmations they have posted it onto their walls, nor have the need to spend minutes staring into the mirror, making sure they can see themselves clearly. But everyone who knows and feels themselves has a practice to honor themselves. I sometimes feel this is what so many CEOs are preaching about when they explain making their bed each morning or some other asinine task that's not useful to people who don't live their lives. What they are trying to capture in poor words is having something to tether yourself that isn't shame-based. I haven't quite found this one thing that grounds me that I should do every day. I play with the options I have each morning, and this has helped me remind myself that my time on the earth is mine, and I only get one chance in each moment. No pressure. Lastly, momentum. Another recent discovery. When you feel prepared and grounded in the ownership of your time, it becomes a lot easier to do things. I don't have too much else to say on this because it is still something entirely foreign to me. I was an achiever in every facet of life where it was prescribed to me what I needed to achieve to be great. But being the judge of what is considered great in your own personhood is gross. Gross work to overcome ingrained notions, to sit with yourself as you are and allow yourself to be disgusted but not hateful, to make fun of yourself when you knew less without shame, to move past things without moving them, to carry the baggage with you without it weighing you down. Disgusting and gross work, pleasurable work, loving work. It's so necessary and so gross. I can acknowledge that not everyone feels the need to get ready as strongly as others. Some were raised to invest in themselves from the beginning. Others had a stronger tether to themselves than they did to society. And enough inner cultivation can come from splashing water on your face in the morning or drinking a cup of tea. But there are many people that don't have time to do even that. The time crisis we are faced with is devastating. The devaluation of personal understanding is devastating. And the idea that even these simple facets can be itemized and sold is par for the course and truly devastating. The art of getting ready, as I understand it, is the resilience to practice upon yourself, even through an active and draining life, to find the capacity to undertake a whimsically melancholic solo endeavor or boisterously lackadaisical time with others. Every day this week, I've spent some amount of time getting ready to be myself. I did things to beautify myself and my living space. I exercised and I created. I did such with no goal in mind. There were no jobs lined up I had to prepare myself for. So I spent that time preparing to be myself. And it felt like a secret I was keeping from others, which was not what I wanted. I also need to experience the spectrum of my own personhood with others. I have a misplaced pride in the effortless nature I adapted to. I'm a vain person, a priss, a wanderer. I like to spend a lot of time with my head in the clouds while fussing over my eyeliner. I'm a deeply disorganized person, and these are things I like about myself. And it has paid me to live this way for a brief amount of time. And I know one day there will be a time when I am completely different from who I am today. And I would like to take that time to cherish myself as I move into that state and in my current state. It's such a shame that vanity is demonized. Maybe in another society far removed by time from our own, spending an hour in the bathroom preening instead of investing in the community would be an overall negative. But in a hyper individual society, it is a survival tactic. What I've learned is getting ready is an inconvenience we all need to have a lot of the time.
It ain't much, but it's honest writing. I mean, I hope you watched it and didn't just skip to this point. But now that I have gotten to the other side of the advice that I was trying to give myself in the essay, I feel like that essay was a very good catalyst for me to like try and maximize free will and like unlearn helplessness. But what I didn't account for was like natural cycles that I do slip into. Like, how do I even say that? Like, you're not always going to be able to make things. I learned that kind of young, even if I didn't. Well, I didn't learn it, but I heard it. And then I just started to learn it. Like recently, you can't keep creating things. You have to stop and watch. And so something that I didn't notice that I noticed this month is that when it was time for me to stop and watch and reevaluate, learn from other people, instead of doing that, I would go to a place where I felt would provide me with the quickest solutions for all of those things, which was TikTok. And TikTok teaches me a lot of helpful things. If anything, it definitely does give me a lot of good sources that I can go to learn more in depth. But the social media trap of it all is that I don't often leave the app to search for those things. And that's where the burnout cycles would start because I would think, oh, I've scrolled on TikTok for this long. I feel a little bit more enriched. Let me see if I can turn this into something. And not to say that creators on TikTok are not like making substantial content because they are, but there's only so much that you can do with the 10 minutes that they allow. That's why I like YouTube so much. But anyway, yeah, this week, the type of content that I was looking for, like, I never know what type of content that I'm looking for. I know it when I find it. Overarching, like, I guess sociological perspectives, more so what I was looking for. And I many sociologists, like books and papers and stuff like that, but maybe, you know what, maybe the search just wasn't showing me what I needed at that time. So I went to my saves. Finally, I save a million things on TikTok. I never go back to them. The more recent ones were the ones that I was going back to. So I finally made a list of a lot of the things that I thought would help me like move into not even just a better mental state and like a better way of being, but a more enriching way of like getting the work that I want to get done. So I gave myself a whole curriculum basically. I have a bunch of books that I have to read and I started reading them. The first book I started with was Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Let me tell you, I have no idea what half of the old English sayings they're using are, but the book itself is just going to become something that I have to look up constantly and learn from and then apply to continue to understand what they're saying and so on and so forth, which is just another step in learning. Normally, when I read books, they're more modern, so you don't necessarily need to look into the historical context behind everything that's going on in the book, even though it is fiction. In my perspective, from what I'm trying to learn, like what I'm trying to see really, like echoes of the past in modern society, I would need to read an old book for that. And I only discovered that because I left the app. And so what does this have to do with like getting ready and the vanity that I preached about and stuff like that in the essay is really just, it's really just going back to basics. So I would not have been able to get to a point where I could say, I don't actually want to be on TikTok. I just want fulfilling media instead of whatever is on there. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. It's really hard to find everything because there's a lot of stuff. I was looking for fulfilling media. And I wouldn't have been able to recognize that if I hadn't first reread my article and took the steps that were outlined there. So I put up some old furniture. I put up some new furniture in my room that I've been meaning to for a while to finally complete the redecoration process that I had going on in here. So I finally have a vanity that I can sit at and look in the mirror all day. But I finally set up my vanity so that I had like a dedicated beauty space where I can put all my products on and stuff like that instead of like shuttling back and forth between my bathroom, whatever I have on like my storage cabinets and stuff like that. Like there's just one space. There's my makeup, my jewelry, everything, and it's all there and there's a cute mirror and stuff. Doing that allowed me to get everything I needed to get done this week. And the only reason I was able to do it all is because I had dedicated times throughout every single day this week where I did, like, I set aside like an hour a day at least to do something for myself that I've been putting off. Not necessarily laundry, because laundry is not for me. I don't know. Laundry is for somebody else. The devil, probably. Laundry is not for me. But I did my hair. I literally just got done doing my hair. I watched a movie, Sup, Spider-Man Brand New Day. Very good. Go see that. I came up with a better system of keeping up with myself. So a while ago, I don't know why, but I kind of just stopped journaling, like writing physically. I think it's because I was writing so much every day that I was just like, I'm just going to use my brainstorming sessions as like pseudo journaling sessions because I really don't have time to sit down with pen and paper anymore. And because of that, I kept like letting things lapse, like things that I wanted to remember for myself. I just literally would forget about them. They would be in the brainstorming sessions next to my novel in like a separate account on a separate device. And I would not look at that after I was done working because I was done working. So I had to come up with a new system of audio notes instead because it's simple, it's efficient, and I get to say everything in my own words. I'll add like sound effects and stuff like that and allow myself to keep up with the things that I'm getting done and the things that I say I want to get done. So it's kind of nothing new for me, really. I'm always having to come up with new systems to kind of support myself and keep myself going through work. But I like having things that end up actually being useful for me. Like I like having a reference point. So I'm going to say I don't hate the article. I think it could have been better. But I did release a kind of follow-up to the essay, like a spiritual successor is what it says. It's called How to Pour Tea Underwater. It'll be on my Substack right now. Basically just musings about what was going on with me in July and how I was working through that. And I'm releasing it now because I'm like, okay, it's time. Learned my lesson, not necessarily as well as I could have, but the best part about lessons is that you can keep revisiting them and you can keep learning more things from them. So that's how I'm going to treat this article and the subsequent article after it. And that's how I'm going to treat my journey. Anyway, that's all from me this week. I would say, if you're at all interested in the things that I put out in this video, I would say to follow my Substack because I have something in the works for this week and I'm going to be like posting updates about it on my Substack. I be like posting musings and stuff like that for the writing exercise that I developed. It's not really something I developed. It's just something that I thought would be cool to do. So I'm going to be doing that probably in like real time on those two platforms. Let me just say Substack for now. It's basically just going to be like a movie analysis type of thing because right now I found a bunch of different movie recommendations that I thought would be really great while I'm in kind of like hearing mode. So I'm in hearing mode right now. I want to hear from other perspectives. So I was going back and revisiting media that I liked before. Now I'm incorporating new media into it. And I'm starting with movies because movies is my, like, I think it's the best of both worlds between like long and short form. It's a succinct story, forgetting about the MCU. It's a succinct story. It tells you what it needs to tell you. And then it goes on. If there's a second movie, that second movie is, in my mind, its own canon. So that's why I like movies so much because it's like, they're telling you what they thought was most pressing to tell you in that one piece of media, 2 hours long. You sit down, you take it in, you go about it with your thoughts, and you can revisit it a lot more times than you can revisit like an entire TV show. Like I was rewatching Fairy Tail this week. That was the first anime I ever watched, and it's what got me into like art and writing and stuff like that. And then I quickly realized how many episodes, how many hours of my life I spent watching that show because the first season is 100 episodes. So that's a no. But a movie is something I can get behind. So I'm going to be doing movie analysis and then, I don't know. I might make a video on it. I might not, but it'll be on Substack if you're interested. That's kind of it for me this week. I have exciting things to come on this channel. I just need to get rid of my massive backlog of work from my job and stuff like that, which, I don't know, keep me in whatever prayers, mantras, manifestations that you do. Keep me in those, please. I'm going to need them. All of it. Because the next week ahead, not looking forward to it, but everything gets better. So thank you so much for watching.